Hi, I'm Julissa Arce. I'm a Mexican immigrant, a nationally best-selling author, an activist, and I had imposter syndrome. Esa soy yo. Imposter syndrome, first and foremost, is a lie because it tells you that you're not good enough when in reality you are, which is why you are in the spaces that you're in. But it basically means that you feel like you're not good enough. The first time that I started feeling like I had imposter syndrome was my first year working at Goldman Sachs. I have always been a very confident person, but being in a place like Goldman Sachs where people had attended Ivy League schools and where their parents had worked at Goldman and their great-grandparents had worked at Goldman, I definitely felt really out of place. I felt like, how am I here when all these people around me felt like they were so much better than me, like smarter than me, and had more money than me, and had grown up so differently than me. My colleagues would tell me how they spent their summers away at camp, or now as adults vacationing in the Hamptons, and whenever I would say, oh, I've never been skiing, they would say, you've never been skiing? How is that possible? Like, they couldn't imagine that someone didn't grow up spending a small fortune vacationing in Aspen. And so many times I felt a little bit ashamed to share that, for me, I was lucky if I got to go to Corpus Christi, Texas and stay at a Motel 6. Like, I considered myself lucky when my parents had enough money to do that. So it was just very culturally different, and a lot of times they made me feel like I was an outsider. The thing about imposter syndrome is that a lot of times it's in your head. My colleagues didn't really expressively make me feel like I was less than them. It's not like anybody said those kinds of things to me. It was just more how I felt being around them. I knew that I was smart enough to work at Goldman, but I did feel inadequate at times. Like, for example, when my accent would make an appearance and my threes sounded like trees. Or, when a client asked me to get coffee because he thought I was the assistant and not the person there to give them a presentation. So those were a couple of times when I definitely felt like I don't belong here. I think it was after my first year of working at Goldman, after I got my first year bonus and I was 23 years old and I had gotten my first six-figure paycheck. I just thought to myself, you are clearly good enough to be here, which is why you are advancing in your career, which is why you just got this huge paycheck. Stop thinking that you're not good enough, because you are. And I wish I could say that I'm like completely cured of imposter syndrome, but I'm a writer now and I've written 2 books, one of which has become a national bestseller, and there are still times when I think I'm not a good writer, or I can't believe I can call myself a writer. Maybe after my 3rd book, I'll be able to call myself a writer, and I have to remind myself that I have felt like this before, where I have felt like I'm not good enough, and clearly I am. I got the cure for imposter syndrome. And the cure is 3 easy steps. Number 1, you have to remind yourself that you have made it as far as you have because of how smart and intelligent and amazing you are. Number 2, you have to get out of your head and look at the actual facts. You are working in the place you want to work. You are achieving the things you want to achieve. And number 3 is not to confuse failures with not being good enough, because all of us are going to encounter failures in life, and that doesn't mean that you quit. It just means that you have to keep going and finessing your skills so that you can get to the place where you want to get to. I'm Julissa Arce. I'm a Mexican immigrant, a nationally best-selling author, an activist, and I am better than good enough. Esa soy yo.